This time, we're going to do something a little different, and I have asked two younger fellows, both of whom have just become the leaders of churches in the last so many years, some of them in the last so many weeks, but we are going to call on the elder one first, Jonathan. And Jonathan Nichols is the pastor, or one of the pastors at Whosoever Will in Duggar, Indiana. Let's give him a hand of encouragement.
Talk to the microphone. All right, it's picking up back there.
Don't use it like a baton like he was.
Baton, yeah. Direct choir, yeah. Well, if you don't know me, my name's Jonathan Nichols, and I'm a part of Whosoever Will and the team of pastors over there. Some people call me J-Dog. I can go by that as well. It's my hip-hop name, 50 Cent. So, yeah. But I was going to take a few minutes and just share my heart a little bit. Apostle Bob just had asked me to share from the perspective as a son, the value of spiritual fathers in our lives as sons as we're walking out this process, and just kind of sharing my journey with it through it all. I grew up in a church, a denominational church. It was a Methodist church I grew up in, and so things were a lot different from the apostolic, from a denominational church, just the mindset. And when I stepped into this place of Whosoever Will, at the time I was really kind of just a broken kid. I was 17 years old. I went to church faithfully. My parents made me go, forced me to go every single Sunday. Couldn't miss unless I was just deathly ill. And so I was there, but there was something crying out more inside of me, and something longing for something more. And I began to seek and search different places, and somehow the Lord just directed me and led me to Whosoever Will. And I ended up there and began to see something different, began to see a family, just wasn't just a pastor we didn't like and we send off, every 3 years, we put in a bad word and they're out. So that's kind of what I grew up in. And it's completely different. And I began to fall in love with just this people that the Lord had led me to and brought into my life. And understanding the spiritual father, spiritual sonship thing was a whole new concept. And it's like, where do you sign up for this? And I watched Apostle Dan and Pastor Chip walk this out with their fathers, Apostle Chuck and, just Billy Epperhart and so many other fathers, and set this example of sonship. And I think I began to catch this heart a little bit as I've just got in this family and catch the heart of sonship. And once I began to catch it, it's like, man, I just want to serve whatever I can do. I just want to make myself available. If it's scrubbing toilets, if it's, just leading youth group, whatever it may be, I just want to serve in whatever capacity as a son, because I began to learn my identity in Christ. It first starts with the Heavenly Father, your identity as a son. I began to get healed of things and get set free of things as the Father began to show His love to me and just show who I am in Him as a son. And, just this spiritual father, spiritual son thing just happened kind of organically. And it wasn't something that was forced or, I signed on the dotted line or anything like that, but we began to develop a relationship together. And the first thing, that as I began to walk in this, as I had somebody believe in me. I had a father that believed in me. I've had, Apostle Dan, Pastor Chip, believe in me. I've never really had that, and there's some maybe missing elements in my natural father that, I had great parents, but to have somebody actually believe in me, hey, you can do the calling of God in your life. You can be who God's called you to be. You can fulfill the plan on your life. I had somebody believing in me. And I remember when I was 19 years old, and the first time that Apostle Dan had asked me to preach, I'm like, you got the wrong guy here, I don't think I'm able to do this. This is not going to happen. You need to pick somebody else to do this. It's obviously not going to work out. And he kept kind of getting on me a little bit, just asking me and pursuing me in it. I'm like, Okay, yeah, I'll try it. I'll try it out. And, I was nervous as all get out doing it. And I was praying the whole time that Sunday night on my way there. I'm like, Jesus, this is a good time for you to come back right now. I know in 89, there's 89 reasons it didn't work out, 90 didn't work out, but it's 2005, and I've got 2005 reasons right now for you to come back right now, Jesus. The first one is me preaching. You need to come back right now, pull up my clothes real nice, and take me away right now. So this is how it's going to work out. So nervous, so terrified, and taking the step, but he saw something in me, they saw something in me and believed in me. And, it was horrible, I'm sure. I did a lot of lost my place. Delivery was just awful, I'm sure. And, but he was there, they were there on the front row, supporting me, amen, shouting amens, and just really supporting who I was. And it just spoke to me that they believed in me and that you can do this. And, they continue to still believe in me from this day on, that you can do this thing that God has called you to do. And it's more just than preaching, but it's leadership and leading teams and leading, where God's placed you at. So continuing to believe in me, it's just been a continuing thing, that fathers do believe in you. They build courage, they build faith, they build a strength in you. And there was a faith and a strength that was put within me that, hey, I can do this, I can do what God's called me to do, because it just put this inner strength within me. So that's what spiritual fathers I've seen has put within me, a confidence and a faith, and to believe in me. So I've had this belief that I can do what God's called me to do. So it's really transformed me in who I am and how I think. But I think another thing is the wisdom and the experience that they have. There's so much wisdom and experience that I have not received, that I have not walked through. There's so many things that I have not experienced myself that fathers have, and they've walked through. They've walked through things of dishonor, betrayal, just so many different things that they've experienced in ministry and in life that they can impart to you, and it's been imparted to me. So that's something else that spiritual fathers have imparted to me is wisdom and experience. There's been so many times I've been with Pastor Chip, and they begin to fold back the layers of the onion, and I'm just trying to figure out the first layer, and they've already got it about 6 layers deep and down, and it's like a Rubik's Cube. It's just figuring this thing out. I'm trying to figure out the first thing. They've got it solved in like 5 seconds. I'm like, how does this work? They have such a wisdom and an experience that they can share and impart to us as sons, and for us to draw on that and to receive from that they can share, just not from just ministry, but from life, from marriage, with kids, with finances, just everything that they can share. I remember a time that even with a house, I remember going to look at it with Apostle Dan, and this thing was like 3,000 square foot house, and it was a giant house. I'm like, I'm going to buy this house, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be an awesome house. I'm going to fix it up, but I think he's nicely saying, this is probably not a good idea for you. You're going to end up probably not in a good financial situation. And, it's those experiences, those times that have kind of saved me some heartache, saved me from disaster, saved me from bad decisions, even though I've got to walk some of these things out, but it's helped me tremendously with just the wisdom and the experience that they have. So fathers impart wisdom, and they have experience that we can glean from as sons. And I think a third thing is fathers care for your soul. As ministers, I think ministers are such lonely people. I don't know what the statistics are, but we can be lonely because it feels like we're all alone and we don't have anybody to run to. And spiritual fathers, they care for your soul. And there was a time in my life that I realized that I have spiritual fathers that genuinely care for me and care for my soul. And I came on staff, it was probably 4 years ago. Going on staff, I had this perception of pastoring and ministry. It's like, hey, I'm just going to preach, I'm going to pray for people, drink some coffee, it's going to be great, and everybody's going to love me. And, you know, I didn't realize how difficult it was, this people thing, you know. If it wasn't for this people thing, if it could just be just me, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, you know, it'd be so much easier. But this whole thing of life and ministry, and I came to this place in my life where, you know, my life just began to blow apart. Things personally in my life was just blowing apart, and I was just trying to love Jesus, serve God, and do what He's called me to do. And you know, everything in my life at the time was just blowing apart, and hell was just breaking loose. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. You know, we've been talking about, you know, these places where, you know, our soul and being healthy, and I came to a place where my soul was damaged, and you know, I was in a marriage where things just blew apart, and where the person I was married to, you know, committed adultery, and wasn't repentive of that, and we couldn't reconcile. And then I'm in this place of brokenness, and here I am supposed to be a pastor in the church, and like I don't know how I'm going to do this at all. I don't know how I'm going to walk this out or be who God's called me to be, and it was so difficult. It was such a painful time, and it was such a time that's like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But I had spiritual fathers to see me through, and I felt disqualified. I felt condemned. I felt like I'm not going to be able to do this. How can I be a pastor when my own life's just falling apart? My family's blowing apart. I've got kids. How am I going to do this? How am I going to fulfill the will of God on my life when things are happening like this? And I remember, I think calling up Apostle Dan once. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna step down. I can't do this thing. I can't do this pastor thing. It'd just be better if I didn't do it. And I just came to a place where I just can't do this. I'm gonna quit. It's just too difficult. Everything's just too hard. And then I remember that one Sunday morning, I just had the courage to go. I'm going to force myself to go. And I remember Melanie coming up to me and saying, you know, if you don't have the faith, you know, use my faith. And I had spiritual mothers, you know, praying for me, interceding for me, fathers helping to me that would cry with me and minister to me. It's like, hey, we're going to get through this. We're going to see through this. And, you know, that would care for my soul and who I was, just not as a minister, but hey, we care about you. We care about Jonathan. We care about you as a person and as a son. And I wouldn't be able to make it if it wasn't for the spiritual fathers in my life. I can just boldly say that today. If I didn't have spiritual fathers, I wouldn't be able to make it. I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for these men in my life, because they cared for my soul and encouraged me and were saying, you know, God's going to meet you on the other side of this. And I was like, it built the courage in me, the faith in me to continue in what God had for me and to continue in this journey together. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without them encouraging me and supporting me and praying for me, interceding for me, building me up, speaking life into me, and not disqualifying me, because I felt so disqualified after it all. Going through a divorce, I felt disqualified from ministering again and felt the condemnation of, you know, the enemy. And they never disqualified me, but kept believing in me to continue in what God had for me, because at the end of the day, I'm a son. You know, I'm a son in the house, and they believed in me and continued to help me through it. So fathers, they care for your soul, and I'm so thankful for fathers that have cared for my soul, not just the ministry, but you know, who I am as a person and as a son. It's completely changed my life. But I'm so thankful for fathers who believed in me, who I'm able to draw wisdom and grace from and experience from. And I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for fathers in my life helping shape my character, developing me, and you know, even accountability. We need accountability. We need somebody to look at us and say, you know, you got something green hanging in your teeth. You know, I'm thankful for my wife. I go around smiling and, you know, hey, I've got something in my teeth. She's like, you got something in your teeth. You need to get that out. But we need that. We need that so we can grow as sons and mature as sons and in our character and develop in who God's called us to be. So I'm so thankful for spiritual fathers. I'm so thankful for Apostle Bob, for Apostle Jamie, and the experience that they carry. I mean, 43 years experience? My gosh, what have you not seen? Probably seen it all. And for us younger sons to draw from it, and I think for a lot of us, sometimes we feel like, you know what, I don't think I can do this. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. It's like, man, I don't feel qualified. I don't feel like I'm anointed enough. I'm gifted enough. But to be able to draw from you guys and the experience that you've carried and that you have and you've been through gives us strength and empowers us to step in. And I'm so thankful for fathers that believe in the next generation, that really want their ceiling to be our platform and to really promote us, to elevate us, believe in us enough, to entrust us enough. There's been so many sacrifices from all our fathers, from Apostle Chuck and from all of you to us sons, to carry on what God is calling us to. So I'm so thankful for fathers that believe in the next generation, that have sacrificed for the next generation so we can be who God's called us to be and take things even further where we're called to go. So I'm so thankful for spiritual fathers that believe in us, that carry wisdom and experience, and that care for our souls. So that's kind of what I had to share today, and hopefully it helps you out. And if you don't have maybe somebody you're connected with, I don't understand people that connect with like Joel Osteen as their spiritual father, or just it's all relationship. It's a heart connect. It's a connection of heart and relationship. It's organic, and I think God places these people in our lives to help us as gifts and to flow and to help us become who all we're called to be as sons in Him ultimately. So that's what I have to share, and I'm going to pass it over to Caleb.
That's great. Story was told, George Stormont told a story about a lady talked to Smith Wigglesworth, and she said, I don't think Jesus is fair. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, He let John lean on His breast. The Bible says that He leaned on His breast. And she said, but the Lord spoke to me. I said, Martha, they could have all leaned on my breast if they wanted to. Yeah. So a lot of this relationship stuff, it depends on what you want, what you're willing to receive. And so it's like, but sometimes that's our insecurities that keep us from things that are good for us. But I was thinking, as Jonathan was saying that what is the value of hope? Now abides these things. We talk about faith and love, but there's that one in there in the middle, hope. I'm thinking, how valuable when you're going through a deal like this for somebody to speak a word that a little hope begins to rise up back inside of you that, well, maybe I can do this thing. Maybe it will work out. Think, how valuable is that to have somebody say that? And I hope he doesn't mind, but I spoke with my brother this week, Scott over here, and there was a time in his life, he was a pastor of an Assembly of God church, and he experienced the unfortunate thing, the same thing that this brother did. And in that world, you're a person non gratis. After if you go through that, no matter whether you wanted it or not, it makes no difference. And it's like, I hate waste, and to me that's a waste. To lose something like that because of something that somebody's gone through in life, like they're now disqualified, and you're already fighting those feelings in yourself anyway. And then to have authority people say, yeah, you're right, you are disqualified, it's like, that's a lot to overcome. I think in Christ, He wants us to be those kind of people. And I see this comes out of this father and son relationship. And in the Methodist Church, it was district superintendent and pastor, or in some it's a pope and it's the priest. I mean, it's all these different titles, but they also describe different relationships too. Not all relationships are the same. And I see, even though I'm sure we don't do everything perfectly, I think we're on to something better anyway than what we've known before. So I'm thankful for that. I'm going to ask Caleb Lay to come, just ask him to share for a few moments as well. Let's give him a hand of encouragement. somebody that I'm very proud of, by the way.
So, am I allowed to say ditto to what he said? Ditto. All right. My name is Caleb, and you can call me K Funk. That would be fun. Yeah. I will drop those dope beats. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. Word to your mother. Anyway, Apostle Bob had asked me to share about the value of sonship and fathers, and I'm I like to consider myself a pretty simple person. I like pictures, and so the picture that I have when he initially asked me that, my initial picture was just thinking about my own natural father. You know, I like to draw correlation, and so I just wanted to talk just about myself. I want to talk about me for a minute, because you know. Our phrase at church is "It's not about you." So, but right now I'm going to talk about me for a minute. I'm video me, Dad, video me. I am very extremely blessed. I grew up in a home with a mom and a dad. And they love the Lord. I grew up in church very similarly. There was not a time where I was not in church. I gave my life to Christ when I was 3 years old, sitting next to the dog bowl, saying, "Jesus, come into my heart." And my mom sitting there, like that kind of a family life, And so I have this great picture of what family looks like and what moms and dads look like, who are actually present in your life and who actually care about you. And so. To me, that's an extremely, how do you put a value on that? How do you put a value on something that has completely shaped who you are and what you see? And so, specifically my dad he's an extremely hard worker. He owns his own business, but he was always there for me, when I was doing sports, and he was always there going to games. If he had to, not go to work, he would do that. And family was very big, for us and very important for us. And so I get this picture of what it's like to be a dad who's present, and I try to emulate that for my daughter, And so anyway, I'm thinking about that. Naturally, I get this great picture of what a dad should look like. And like I said, I grew up in church, and the picture that I got at a church that I used to go to, I want to talk about fathers and sons, but I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because a lot of times we know that our relationships can be defined by our past experiences. And if we allow that to be the case. And so I had past experience with a natural father that was very, very good. But the church that I attended, they believed in fathers and sons. They talked about that. They believed in the man of God, all that kind of stuff. But it was what I would consider more of a warped view. There was an extreme emphasis on the man of God, I like what you said last night about not a great man of God, but men of a great God. I love that. But it was all about the man of God, and there was an extreme emphasis on finance. And you were to give to the man of God, half of your income, and among other things. I was taught, actually, when I was in children's church, that two of the principles that we were taught was, or one of the things was that if we didn't find out how much our Christmas presents were worth and tithe off them, then we were cursed as kids. That's what we were taught in children's church, that we needed to go find out how much our Christmas presents were worth. I mean, we were thinking about new income streams, That's not the direction I think we should go. So anyway, we're taught that, and I take that to my mom and dad because I'm seeing this good picture that I have of my family, and sons, and I'm like, Mom and Dad, what the heck? What is this? And whenever they hear that, and they're just like, obviously as blown away as I was, but then we go to talk to the pastor about it, the father about it, and the response is, you don't question the man of God. you don't question. So I'm getting this picture of, okay, so I'm cursed if I don't tithe off my Christmas presents, and now I'm not supposed to question you or Scripture or anything else and think for myself or be a good Berean. And so as a young man, like this was the picture that I got, which to me that's a very warped picture of what fatherhood is, being a father and son. But my point is this, that we can't allow past relationships, and we can't allow that to determine what is truth and what is good and what is right. And a lot of times we make our current relationships pay for the sins of past ones. And so our phrase around the office is the ghost of pastors past. I'm sure everyone in here can attest to the person who has gone to, they come into your church and they've been to 13 different churches and they're upset about something because of something that someone else has done to them, So we're not starting at ground zero, we're starting at negative 11, and so it's trying to build your way up. A lot of times we allow that past experience to determine the way that we see things now. And so I say that to say this, that the Lord did some good work in me, some healing. And it was, I knew what it should have been like, and seeing the warped view was, there was this check in my spirit about it, but that was the picture that I had of a spiritual father. And so it took a little bit, it took seeing the correct picture. How do you tell a counterfeit from the real thing? You hold the real thing up to it. And it took seeing the real thing to realize, I don't have to believe or receive. That was a warped picture. That's not the way that it is. And so, I'm sure, have you heard the saying, you can't choose your family? Well, I believe that is true, that you can't choose your family. But I also believe that it's kind of not true. In the sense of this, let me explain this. I can't pick who my biological father and mother are, obviously. I can't determine that, but I can determine who my mom and dad are. It's based on how I received them. And so, like, Jesus couldn't do very many works in his hometown because of the way that he was received. It didn't change what he was. He was the Son of God. And he could do these things, but it changed who he was to them because they could not receive him as what he was. They only saw him as, that's the carpenter's boy. And so I can have biological father and mother, but that doesn't automatically make them mom and dad. And I believe that the Holy Spirit places fathers and mothers in our lives, but we have to choose whether or not to receive them as mom and dad. And so if we can see them for who they are and for who and how God has placed them in our lives, then we get to that place where we can see the correct picture and we can receive from them, because I do believe that there is extreme value. And so how do we put value on that? I'm going to try to at least say some things. Jonathan nailed a lot of them. So you're going to hear a lot of echoed sentiment here. But I think the basis of everything has to be love. A relationship, sonship is a relationship. I mean, it was, the picture that I had was that it was I've got to honor you by giving this. And I believe in honor and I believe in giving. But it was more of a controlling kind of an honor. And I believe that the foundation has to be love. If it's not love, then it's out of obligation or out of duty. And I don't believe that that's true relationship. I can have an obligation or a duty to a corporation. Or even to a mentor. And a mentor can teach me great things, and I can receive great things from them, but that doesn't make them a father. And a father, there's this relationship aspect that is there, and I think that has to be based in love. So the basis of all of it has to come from a place of love. And so when I found that through meeting Apostle Bob and Sarah, and then also many of you guys as well, it changed my perspective, and I was able to. The Lord was able to do some things in me that helped me to heal, and it helped me to grow. But it was all based out of love. And the first thing we talk about all the time, that relationship is not on the table. That we can disagree about whatever it may be, but I love you, and you're my son, and it's the basis for everything. That it comes back to that point of love. and this is the relationship that we have. And so, so talking about value, what do I value out of a father and son relationship? Love was the number one thing. That relationship was never on the table. Empowerment, and Jonathan talked about it, like standing on the shoulders. This is the value of a relationship between a father and a son that I also like to try and put myself in position now that I am a dad. I want my daughter to succeed, and not just succeed, but to go so much further than I did or ever could go. And the way that happens is by supporting her and putting her on my shoulders so that she continues to build, his ceiling being my floor, and my ceiling being my son's floor. And so what I see in the value of a father is that they are willing to take and lay down their life to say, look, I want the most and the best for you. It's not about you making me look good as a father. It's about what can I do to help and to serve and to being a father, and in love, and we as sons honor and love that as well. But just, I guess the mindset changed from it's all about me as a father to how can I help to empower and to grow you so that you can be the person that God has called you to be. I want to call forth your destiny and help you to succeed in that. And so empowerment is a big value. Instruction, as a dad, I want to train my daughter and instruct her on the ways that she should go, and the same from my natural father, from my spiritual father. The value that is received through just instruction. I've been there before. Look, you don't want to do it like this. Trust me. This is where wounds can form like this. That was a stupid way to do this. It's a phrase we like to say is that a smart man can learn from their mistakes, but a wise man can learn from the mistakes of others. And so I want to be that wise man. As a son, I want to be able to learn from the years and years of experience from my dad. Spiritual and natural. And so. But I have to be open to receiving that instruction and not be so hard-headed and proud to say, well, I'm going to do it on my own. So if I can position myself to receive the instruction and to be humble enough and be comfortable enough in my own skin to receive what he has for me, then I'm able to stand on the shoulders and not make the same mistakes and not have to walk through this cycle. So there's value in that. There's value in the protection. I think of a father figure, and they're there to protect their family. Like they're the stability. They're there to. I would literally lay down my life if someone tried to take or kill or harm my wife or my kids. I mean, like lay down. Isaac. Oh, no. What? You crazy? That's insane. As a dad, I am doing everything that I possibly can to protect my family, and. On the receiving end of that as a son, having a father that is willing to do whatever he can to protect me, there's so much value in that because, like you said, it's not that they were attacking you. It's they're saying they're going to the guy when you make the mistakes. They're going to your dad, and dad's saying, well, okay, no, let me just cover him and let me just protect him, and so having that, there's an insane amount of value in that because we know what the devil likes to do. To kill and to steal and to destroy and plant these little seeds in people's minds. It's not always about what you say, it's about what people think that you said, and so he's constantly trying to deceive and to undermine. And so to be able to have someone that has your back and that you're not doing this on your own, that is an extremely valuable asset. And so protection. Intercession goes along with protection, the interceding that takes place on behalf of a son, that constant prayer. I realize that I am not in the place that I am today because of my own exploits and because of the things that I can do. I realize that it's through the power of God and it's through prayer of a faithful servant of God that I can even stand here and be able to deliver what God has placed inside of me because he is praying for me and he's interceding for me. It was like Moses, up here and lifting his hands, and Joshua's down there and he's fighting, and he is able to receive the victory because Moses is up here interceding, and so the intercession part, I think that can be an easy thing to overlook, but I believe that it's one of the most valuable parts of being a son and having a father. Another thing was freedom. I was before in a relationship that was more controlling, that you have to do this, 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 and this, and I'm your father. Whereas in a good relationship, healthy relationship, having the freedom to make mistakes, having the freedom to fail, and having the room to bloom, as we like to say, the opportunity for growth, to say, you know what, go do this. Okay, you're not ready for that. Let's do this. Let's fix this. Let's change this. Okay, now go do this. But to be able to have that that kind of freedom is freeing. It's liberating, and not constantly feeling like I'm going to make a mistake, or again, I've got to do this all on my own. Having someone there to say, go do it. I'm watching over you. I'm keeping you safe, and I'm praying for you, and I'm supporting you, and I'm pushing you, and I'm your biggest cheerleader. There's value, obviously, there. I believe that a relationship is there to enhance our relationship with the Lord. That it's not there to replace our relationship with the Lord. Because if the emphasis becomes all about Father and them being our source, then I think that's, again, the skewed perspective. They're there to enhance our relationship. And so, again, it's about that personal development that we're talking about, that I still have to be motivated and do this thing on my own, in a sense of, this is my relationship with you. But my father is there to help to enhance that relationship and to help me to grow. Just like as a father, I'm there to help my daughter to grow, And so another saying that we have and that we like is that I would rather be the pedestal than to be put on the pedestal. I would rather be the pedestal lifting up Jesus than to be on the pedestal being lifted up. And so if we maintain that kind of perspective, then again, there's an extreme amount of value there. The other thing that I notice as a son is that we have access based on father's reputation. You can picture the hometown look of, oh, you're Bob Hauselman's son or daughter, or you're Sarah's daughter or son. Having that, you're good. I don't even need to worry about it. I don't need the background check. Because of the reputation of the father. That obviously creates value within the son, and so. Yeah, it goes both ways. If your father's reputation is poor, well, then you're starting at negative 11. You're having to come back there. I think that another value of having a father is their ability to challenge you. They create the right amount of resistance for growth, if that makes sense. That, like a seed, it has to have the resistance of the ground in order to grow, to be the tree that it's supposed to be. There's a certain amount of resistance and challenge that a father brings, and as a son, being able to recognize that value and say, you're challenging me on this and I don't like it, but I'm willing to accept it and to try to grow from it. And not recognize it as necessarily an attack on me, and saying, oh, well, you're wrong and you're dumb and this is not how the way you do it. But recognizing it as, okay, I get that. Again, it boils back down to love, and that their vision is to only see you want to grow, to only see you to succeed. But if I don't have that picture, then it's like, oh, well, wait, are you trying to stifle me? Are you trying to stifle the anointing? God's called me to be this, And if we have that kind of a picture, well, then there can this tension be created between father and son. But if we understand the love aspect, that I'm only doing this because I love you and because I want to see you grow, they're willing to challenge and not just allow you to go do whatever the heck you want. They say, okay, look, no, that's wrong. No, and so we have to be willing to, as sons, to be able to receive that. And when we can receive it, then there's value there as well. Jonathan talked about the impartation part. I believe, I'm a big fan of and believe that impartation, just even laying on of hands, you can't. There's no words for that. I know personally, I have caught more than he has taught. in the impartation of just watching his life. You know, I catch that as we have a picture that is of a lion, a full-grown lion, and it says, "Never quit because you don't know who's watching." And then behind him is this little lion who's just sitting there watching. You know, and so as a son, I'm always watching. And I'm always, even though it may not be, I'm not like intentionally watching or planning on doing anything, I'm still receiving it just because I'm surrounding myself with that. You know, and so the impartation of the life of the Father is so critical. And we can receive so much from that just by watching. And then finally, the inheritance. Value from the inheritance. What he has fought for, what our fathers have fought for, we get to receive, and it becomes our blessing. And recognizing that it wasn't me that did all this fighting for this, you know, the years of service, the years of prayer, the years of struggle, but I get to receive it as inheritance as a son, and it's a blessing to me. You know, I recognize that stepping in as lead pastor of Restoration Christian Church, I didn't plant the church, I didn't start the church, I didn't walk through the 40 years of the hardship of the church, and I receive it as blessing, and I believe that the Lord has me there for a reason as well, you know, and so that for my kids, and then it's going to continue to grow. And so, but being able to receive and again, not think that it's all about me and what I can do, but to be able to acknowledge that someone went before me. My dad went before me, and he fought, and he worked, and he sweat, and he bled, and I get to receive in it as blessing. There's value there. And so, if nothing else, love is the basis of all of it. You know, and having the correct picture, there's so much value in understanding what is right and what is good and what is true. And the picture of a good father who does love and does all of these things out of love, then we can receive the value of a true relationship of a father. So.
Good stuff. I just kept thinking 2 weeks ago at our leadership summit, Apostle Tony said something that I've been meditating on for 2 weeks. I just can't get away from it. And he said, there's going to come a day where we get this father-son thing right in a generation, where we're going to raise up a generation of sons to be fathers, that when their children are 16, 17, 18 years old, they'll be able to look at their father and say, I may not have all this God stuff figured out, but if he's anything like you, then I want a relationship with him. I mean, that's a huge statement. Imagine having a generation of sons and daughters that they're like, you know what? Maybe we didn't get a whole lot of other stuff right, but if he's as patient with me as you are, if he's as loving as you are, if he's not as easily angered as you are, if he's anything like you, Dad, then that's someone that I think I want a relationship with. And I mean, that one struck me real strong, because I began to think, man, I wonder, can my kids say that? Because I've definitely made plenty of mistakes, but you can't help but have that at least as a model, and not to condemn us, but a model to say, you know what, I think we can get this thing right. And I believe it has to go multi-generational, because for a lot of us, there might have been, like my dad had no father. He barely had any friends in ministry. There wasn't anybody there to help him whatsoever. And it was, so every year, every generation, it seems like we've had to start over, rather than actually have something that builds some synergy to it, and be multi-generational. Because I watch my daughter and her husband, and how much better I tell them all the time, you're so much better parents than we were. You're raising Katie just so much more amazing. There's more wholeness. There's more. And I said, man, I love that. I love watching Esteban just come home after 9 hours of work and play with her for 3 hours and just run in a circle for like a half hour. I mean, I'm just like, man, I don't know if I did that, or wanted to. Anyway, part of that is temperament, but I believe we're going to get this thing right, and I believe it's absolutely something that's going to be huge. And also, Jason just shared something with me. He kind of wanted to just add to this, if that'd be all right. Jason, come on, man. Yeah, absolutely. Come on, man.
Well, I'm going to speak on a different side of things, but I'm going to speak mainly to you as fathers. Not necessarily from the side of a son, but what I've experienced of what a father can do in the life of what you produce. The power of fathers. I experienced coming into a youth pastored for 16 years. And came to the point where I had a spiritual father in my life who took me from a place of, first of all, I was raised a PK. Many of you know that. I despised the idea of ministry. Had prophecies from very young in my teen years that God had called me, given me a pastor's heart. Didn't want anything to do with it. It took me 4 years to be able to even handle the idea of somebody calling me youth pastor. And got to the point where I could handle that. And then I knew that God was calling me to more than that. And I had the process and experience of going from the first time I spoke in front of my own peers at 17 years old, in front of a group of my own friends, I passed out behind the pulpit. No joke. No joke. No joke. I was homeschooled. I was extremely nervous talking in front of people. I did not have the ability to talk in front of people, and I literally passed out at 17 years old in front of, I'm talking, a half dozen of my own peers. And so this is what God can do, though, in the process of having a spiritual father who begins to speak into you, because he took me from that place and he began to mentor me, knowing that I was called to more than just being a youth pastor, all the way to the final hour of handing the baton. And so I also know what it's like and the power that you all as spiritual fathers have when that is dropped. And the abandonment that I'm still getting healed from. The things that Apostle Jamie shared, whenever you begin to realize that those things are there, because what it produces, you see, I've experienced what it is when I talk about securities and insecurities. Insecure leaders reproduce insecure leaders. And I came to Apostle Dan earlier and I said, insecurities are contagious. But what's even more incredible is how God works is that security is also contagious. And that whenever you have secure fathers in your life, that becomes something that you build off of. Exactly what Caleb said earlier. That when you can't believe in yourself, and I went from being a youth pastor where I was extremely insecure in who I was and even the idea of what God had called me to be. And he took me to the place where I literally had to, this is how big of a deal it was to me. I had to write on the screen of my phone every day, have it on my phone, that when I opened my phone, I saw Pastor Jason, to be able to get it in my spirit that was what I was called to. That's how much I struggled with it. But that was things that he walked me through the process of getting a grip of in my life of what I was called to be. And so I know that what you have the ability to do as spiritual fathers is to give them the ability. This is what they did for me. Give me the ability to believe in something I didn't even believe in myself. They give you the ability to believe that even if I can't see myself. This pastor took me from the point, as a spiritual father, took me from a point to where I couldn't even stand in front of people to get up there and just be willing to jump head first into something I didn't know anything about, didn't care. You can't succeed and be successful until you're given the ability to fail. And he gave me the ability to fail. Yeah. And so it gave me the ability to also succeed and to be what God has called me to be. And so in that process, that, not having it work out right, I love the picture of Caleb and Apostle Bob and the handing off of the baton and Shannock. And I love those pictures. But I'm not one of those pictures. But I do know that this process of when it's not handed off right, the power that it has, but also how when God brings the right spiritual fathers into your life, how much it changes. When Apostle Dan was reading through that list, it's pretty humiliating or humbling whenever you realize that so many of those you see still in your life, or you've walked in those. It's tough. And yet, I know that in this last year, I can tell you, this last year has been an absolute year of healing for myself and for my wife. But the words that have come out of spiritual fathers that are in this place, I can't even put into words the healing that it's been to us. I would never wish a flood on anybody, but I could tell you that God brought healing into our lives through that situation. He brought healing into our lives because He allowed us to understand and come to a new understanding, the healing of what spiritual father speaking in and saying, listen, we believe in you and you guys are doing what you're called to do. And you know what, whenever you're looking around, you're going, man, what are these people going to think of this? And what are they going to think of that? And what if they don't like the changes that we feel like the direction is? And all these things. And you got spiritual leaders around you saying, hey, you're doing what God has called you to do. And you're doing what God's told you to do. And so you just run with it and you go for it. And we believe in you. Those words are what give us kids the ability to go even whenever there's fear. To jump and to have, and I want my son to be able to, my kids to be able to go leaps and bounds. I don't want them to start out where I started. I want them to build off of my shoulders. And that's what you give spiritual sons the ability to do. You give us as spiritual sons the ability to believe bigger than what we see in of ourselves. And you give us the ability to go far beyond. So I want to thank you all for in this season of our lives, you've been, God has used you more than you'll ever know. And so I thank you.
Well, it's great. These are things I know that Chuck Clayton, the foundational kinds of things that he was the driving force of his heart, because I remember his mantra was, I have no one who cares for my soul.
Yeah.
You know, there's a scripture that talks about that there's places in life where it seems like there is nobody who cares about me. And I know we've had people in our who told me this, said, well, I believe God thought He believed, in what I was doing, and He cared about the church, He cared about the ministry, just was never sure He cared about me. I'm thinking, so you're operating what you do from a position of weakness, not strength and confidence and all of that. And as leaders, as that scripture there's a scripture in the Old Testament that talks about there's enemies coming this way, there's enemies coming this way, and so he said, well, we're going to have to divide. You're going to have to go over there. Now you lead this bunch over here. And he said, now whatever you do, you be confident, because if these people see you not being confident, they're not going to be confident. Yeah. But if you say, we can do this, even if you're saying it by faith, maybe, be the leader. Do that, because you can do that stuff. And it is true. I think that we see things as older people and as parents, even with our own children, we see things in them that they can't see in themselves. We see the possibilities, the potential that's in there. My wife, for years, had thousands of kids come through the school, and she saw things in them that they couldn't believe about themselves. And you just keep hammering, you just keep saying it. I know you can do this, and she, you empower people when you do that. And we have the power of death but it's life. And we always worry about, we're making a bad confession. What about the power of life? Use that stuff. Come on. It's all powerful stuff, right? So, all good things. Anybody else got any questions, thoughts, observations?
About 8 years ago, I think me and all three of us were together in a lot of different settings with certain spiritual fathers that had a heart for God and paid the price and done. And I remember one we really looked up to, not a member of ARM, but indirectly. It was just when we talked about succession. He had given his network away like 2 or 3 times to take it back. And we were talking about how you do this. And he looked at us and said, I have never seen it done right. I've never seen it done right. And I'm just rejoicing today because for the last 5, 6 years, we've seen it done right. Not that we made mistakes along the way, but I rejoice in this day.
I almost said when we had our handing off ceremony and all that, I almost said this because I had this little private thought, but people say to you, aren't you afraid that he's going to make a mistake? Oh, of course he's going to make a mistake. I'm not afraid of it though. And it's going to happen. Next question.
He kind of covered a little bit. My first ARM conference, 2004. So I got to see this thing be rolling now for, 13 years, 14 years, and I've got to, year after year, watch the guys get up and talk about sonship, and talk about passing the ministry and passing the baton, but for 13 years, have never seen it done. So, I was telling Dustin last night, I said, man, Apostle Bob is a different breed. I don't know if you all realize what you're getting to see here. The years and years of what it has taken Apostle Chuck pouring into these men and teaching this, and finally somebody catching the right heart, catching the right mindset, that their identity is not in the church, or their identity is not that they are a pastor, but their identity is in Him and Him alone. And they have comfort, and they have peace, and finally being able to say, man, run. Not because somebody died, or because it was
Come on.
not because it was a natural son, or but actually passing it to somebody and who they have raised in the spirit. That's planting an apple tree and saying, I know I probably ain't gonna get to see these apples grow.
Right.
But I'm planting this apple tree in faith, knowing that one of these days, man, there's gonna be some big fruit there.
See, I'm excited right now. If we can keep doing this right, if we keep doing this right, what's it going to be like for the third and the fourth generation?
Right.
Come on.
How far are those people?
Yeah.
What accomplishments are they going to be able to do that we only dreamed about? Just thought about. If we can keep doing this thing right, we've had numbers of young people come and live at our house. For our wife's a collector of strays. And we've had a lot over the years, and most of them were African Americans or Africans. And what I observed about them is that they would come with a plastic bag with their entire worldly possessions is in some sort of a Walmart bag or something like that. And so, during that time, we buy them clothes, they accumulate stuff, they get a Walkman, they got this, they're accumulating stuff. And then, it was a while back. And then they would leave, and they would leave a lot of that stuff behind. Our basement is evidence of it. They would leave it behind, and it's like, I thought these people they're not making any progress in life because they keep starting over. They don't accumulate anything. And I think the church does the same thing. Anytime generations get disconnected in the church, we do exactly the same thing. And we're carrying the same little bag of dirty laundry around from one generation to another, when we should be, by the third time, it's like 14 semis out front that we're hauling the stuff in with us, moving along in life, because we've built something, we've accumulated something, and that's not just stuff, but wisdom and relationships and things of value like that. I'm excited about people who I will not even live to see. I'm excited about those people and the possibilities of what that's going to be like. So all we need to do is do our part, do whatever it is we're supposed to be doing. And I think we do that. God's going to do. We have to think this multi-generational stuff. We're thinking 100 yards down the road, and I won't be here. But I'm excited about the possibilities.
Amen.
So, anybody else? Yes.
I think it's important that we always keep our eyes open to the potential that it doesn't maybe look the way it always was. Because one of the things I have seen some things over the past 5-6 years, I'm sorry you haven't, and it being passed on properly, because even though Apostle Chuck passed, and there was baggage and issues along that was left behind, I've watched a team with a leader arise from that. And that's a different DNA altogether, and Jesus did lead the world to a team.
Absolutely.
With a leader,
Was.
And I look at what we're trying to do with Who's for Will. We're leaving it to a team that has a leader. And I think that it's important, we don't always look at it has to be the man up there, but a team with a leader. And I think that's the heart of God, that we don't get so focused on one person being it all the time. And not saying that, Caleb, I hope you, but you do have a team too, with still leadership things. So that's just my 10 cents on seeing some things maybe being passed differently in this new
Yeah.
season that we're in.
See, that's my observation. I see that at your church. I certainly seen that with Pastor Shannon here. I see what's happening at Restoration and some others as well. Because the mentality has been sometimes because you're the founding person, you're the pioneer, and you're out there and there's nobody to help you. You perpetuate that. That's the right style. But I think we have to move to this other thing. If we're going to do a bigger thing, we're going to reach more people, we're going to be more effective in our communities, the one-man thing isn't going to work.
Yeah.
It's just not a good strategy.
Right.
It was what was needed maybe to get started. You need the crier, prayer, preacher guy to come in and get the thing started, but that's not how it's going to continue and grow.
No, that's it.
Isn't that right? So, who else? Not trying to make this a long meeting, we'll quit right now if we can, but don't want to leave anybody out. Well, then we will just say our goodbyes, and once again, thank you to Pastor Shannick and his family for the good food and fellowship, and we're going to be dismissed now. Reminder, for anybody that can come, 5 o'clock today, there is a commissioning service at Restoration Christian Church. Richard and Dawn Johnson, everyone's invited to come. Just a reminder to everybody. God bless you as you go.